Hey folks! Today I want to talk more about my current favorite RPG, Outgunned. I'll share my impressions now that I've run it a bunch of times. I'll go over the recent Outgunned Adventure crowdfunding campaign that added some really cool new material. And finally, I'll revisit how to play Outgunned online, as I recently implemented a new Discord dice bot that works great for theater of the mind style gaming using Discord and the Google Sheets-based character sheet that I previously made. By the way, Two Little Mice, the creators of Outgunned, just recently entered a publishing agreement with Free League. This means that you can now purchase the Outgunned books on the Free League website, just like all the other properties that they have. So you can see they have the Outgunned core book, as well as the Action Flicks book and World of Killers and the Mission Dossier. So basically everything that was funded with the initial Outgunned Kickstarter. And I believe they are also planning to offer Outgunned Adventure once this becomes generally available. It's been released to backers in PDF, but not in print yet. I really believe that this will help get Outgunned into the hands of a lot more players, so this I think is a great thing for the game. Just a brief refresher on what Outgunned is. Outgunned is a cinematic action RPG where you play heroes that win against terrible odds. Think movies like Die Hard, John Wick, Hot Fuzz, Fast and Furious, and various other action movies. It uses the so-called director's cut system, which is based on rolling matches, coupled with a push-your-luck mechanic. The game is lightweight, with player-facing roles only. Enemies are handled via simple templates that can be customized if desired. I won't go into more details here, but you might want to check out my previous video about Outgunned from about a year ago. In that video, I provide a more extensive overview, go over character creation, and talk about some ways to play the game online. Since then, I had a chance to run a couple of homebrew scenarios. The first was a scenario I call Satellite Sabotage, where the players need to thwart the world domination plans of an evil tech billionaire named Elton Muskie by blowing up his satellite network before it goes online. I've run this twice online and twice in person at conventions, and it was fun and different each time I ran it. The second scenario was the B Team, which is obviously inspired by the A Team. I ran this in person, including character creation and some brief world building at the beginning to establish the team itself, their vehicle, and so on. This ended up being a really fun and zany session, and I definitely want to run this again at some point. Perhaps as a mini-campaign rather than a one-shot. So, why do I love Outgunned so much? I think it can be summed up quite simply. It's a perfect match for my GM style. I love the high-octane, cinematic action vibe. When I run it, it tends to have a fair amount of levity, but that's obviously not necessary if you and your table prefer a more serious tone. Both the fight and chase mechanics are excellent, and Outgunned Adventure, which we'll look at in a second, adds a few more. I like that it's low crunch, but still has very fun and engaging mechanics. The matches and reroll-based mechanics add a certain exciting gambling feel. And as a player, all skills and attributes carry equal narrative weight. So you never feel like the only thing you can do in combat is punch or shoot. The game rewards creative actions that lean into your character's strengths, whether that's distracting enemies, leveraging the environment in interesting ways, or other things. The fact that all roles are player-facing means that I, as the GM, can focus on the story. I can come up with interesting consequences for failed rolls, play NPCs, and so on. The game is also low prep, or at least low mechanical prep, because of the way enemy templates work. You absolutely can do some prep ahead of time, perhaps to pick some feats or special actions to make your enemies a bit more unique. But it's also totally fine to run off the cuff, pick out an enemy template on the fly, and don't even worry about feats or special actions. And I love how easy it is to adapt various settings or subgenres. The B team, for example, was almost no work. I just had to think of a mission idea and pose some world-building questions to the players to establish the team and so on. Most other action settings will be quite similar. And for some, you can even leverage the additional material included in the various action flicks. I'll show those in a second. Finally, I just love creating outgunned characters. For my first adventure, I had provided pregens. For my second one, we generated characters at the table, and it was very quick and easy. The physical cards really helped. That way, I was able to spread out all the roles and tropes on the table and have the players go through these and pick the ones that resonate with them. Then enter the info on their character sheet. Perfect for an impromptu pickup game. Earlier this year, Two Little Mice ran a crowdfunding campaign for Outgunned Adventure, which is a sort of sequel to Outgunned, but also a standalone book. They call it, as you see here, a standalone genre book for the cinematic action RPG Outgunned. As you see here in the table of contents, this is actually a full standalone game, so it covers character creation, it covers the actual game mechanics, so rolling the dice, determining successes, re-rolling. It covers how combat works, the meta currencies, guns and everything. So most of this is actually shared with the core Outgunned game, so technically you only need this one if you want to run adventure genre games using the Outgunned system. So this caters more to settings like Indiana Jones or Tomb Raider, perhaps Uncharted, so where it's more about treasure hunting, dealing with traps and enemies and things like that. Now, while Outgunned Adventure shares a lot of the book with Outgunned, it does add a couple of unique new mechanics. For example, here we have a whole section about temples and traps. Rules for dealing with traps, so triggering traps, avoiding traps. There's even a whole bunch of specific kinds of traps. Trigger traps, deterrent traps, deadly traps. Some really good examples. The blade tunnel, closing door, rotating bridge. There's revolving walls. So some of these are really fun. Not necessarily traps in the sense of damaging the players, but also just really cool adventure elements. Okay, the deadly ones here. Of course, we have the iconic rolling boulder from Indiana Jones. A sea of fire, collapsing floor, so some really cool stuff in here. Another really nice thing that Outgunned Adventure adds is the run mechanic. This is a little bit of a different spin on the chase mechanic that was introduced in the core Outgunned game. Chases typically revolve around either the heroes trying to chase an enemy, so perhaps it's a car chase and they're trying to stop the enemy and get a hold of the MacGuffin. Or it could be the other way around. The heroes might need to make an escape and they're being chased by enemies, so they need to figure out a way to shake them off. Chases are super fun. It's all the same core mechanic that you use in combat and other roles, but with a few twists that I think really add a lot of excitement. Now, runs are for scenes that involve the heroes running away from something, as it tends to happen in adventure movies. So this might be Indiana Jones running away from the boulder we just talked about. Or you might be running away from a whole Nazi battalion. Or maybe even from a large monster, right? Something like that. Overall, it's somewhat similar, but I really like the twist that it adds here on the chase. Then we have supernatural threats. This is, of course, totally optional, depending on the kind of tone that you're going for with your game, right? So it might be something where maybe there aren't supernatural enemies, you're just dealing with normal bad guys and treasures and things like that. Or you might be dealing with supernatural threats. Think the mummy, for example. They even have some text here that explains, well, is it really supernatural or is it just superstition? So it's kind of up to you what setting you want to play in. But if you do want supernatural feats, then they provide a bunch of those here. So they might have a cursed touch, or they might be immortal. They might be able to dissolve into a swarm of insects, or be a walking corpse. So there's some really nice stuff in here. Some cool special actions as well, mind control, restrain, things like that. And again, some nice examples. It's a cool art style, by the way. I like this kind of brownish look. The Pharaoh's Mummy, the Abominable Yeti, we have the Mighty Warlock, the Nagini, I assume. You could even have a supernatural rival. Yeah, this is sort of the heart of Outgunned Adventure, right? What these kind of scenarios revolve around. So they often involve a treasure and a rival. So some good tips for how to structure your mission and maybe your entire campaign. Another new rule that Outgunned Adventure introduces that I really like are extended roles. You can think of this as maybe skill challenges in some versions of D&D or things like that, where you basically need to overcome an important and difficult situation that warrants more than just a single die roll. Yeah, so maybe you're trying to repair a damaged vehicle while enemies are shooting at you or something like that. So this provides a nice mechanic for dealing with those situations. And there's actually a couple of variations of it. How you can, for example, define a success threshold, and you just need to roll a certain number of successes. There might be a timed success threshold, or successes might just determine how well you pull this off. You can do a best 3 out of 5, or you could decide that you can only fail a couple of times. And opposed rolls are also new in Outgunned Adventure. Again, normally Outgunned is entirely player-facing when it comes to die rolls. I, as the director, let the players know what kind of challenge they're facing, whether it's an action or a reaction, and then they roll to either take that action or defend themselves with a reaction. Opposed rolls are optional rules where either you have two adventurers facing off against each other, right? So some sort of PvP, which I'm normally not a fan of, but it's good to have a rule for that just in case it comes up. You might have adventurer versus director, where they're directly facing off against a specific opponent. And I can definitely see this coming in some interesting situations where it's the opponent that sets the target for the roll. And I can definitely see this being useful in some instances. There's even a rule for combining the last two rules and basically having extended opposed rolls. Yeah, this stuff is all pretty similar from the regular Outgunned. And then I also want to briefly show Action Flicks Volume 2. Again, you might remember the original Action Flicks that was released as part of Outgunned itself. And this covered a whole bunch of settings, mini settings, Star Raiders, Rising Dragon, Cloak and Dagger, Great Powers, Weirder Things, A Kind of Magic, Killing Aliens, Ghost Hunters, Midnight Wars, so vampires and stuff, Neon Noir, basically cyberpunk, and Everything at Once. Action Flicks 2 adds a whole bunch of additional settings, some that I'm really excited about. So here we have Star Knights. It's basically Star Wars, but in particular Jedi and Sith. Then you have Old Ones, which is pretty obvious. Wild West, I really like. There are actually some nice rules in here for doing shootouts or duels. Dark and Light is sort of a angels versus demons setting. Mighty Swords is basically something like Conan or Xena. Then you have District 77, that's buddy police TV shows. Dino Storm, I'm going to show this in a second because I'm actually thinking about running something here, but this is very obviously Jurassic Park and similar kinds of dinosaur settings. Furious Wasteland is basically Fallout or, other post-apocalyptic games, but it really tries to capture the Fallout vibe. Army of Evil is pretty obvious, zombies. And then Quarktails, aka DuckTales, and Insert Coin, sort of a way of playing in a video game. Let's, just as an example, take a look at Dino Storm. I might actually do another video in the future where I go over all of these in a bit more detail. So here we have Dino Storm. I really love the art, by the way. The VHS tapes and these images, I think it's just a really cool combo. So like all of these action flicks, they start off with a little bit of a description of the setting, gives you some homework. So in this case, the inspiration is clearly Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, but also the Dino Crisis game or Kong Skull Island. And then here it kind of summarizes what you get. So you're getting a bunch of new feats, some tropes, new dinosaur enemies, new enemy feats, special actions for chases and runs, and a hero. All of these come with a pre-gen, basically. So this kind of goes over the core themes. You can very clearly tell, again, Jurassic Park in here. There is some possible missions you might want to play, some new rules. So here, for example, they distinguish between dinosaur enemies that you can actually fight and big dinosaurs, where really your only option is to run away as fast as you can. Here we have the new character options, so new feats. There's some new interesting tropes, like the animal lover, the action paleontologist, or the chaos theorist. Obviously the Jeff Goldblum character from Jurassic Park. Then we have some new dinosaur enemies. So we have first some feats that they might have to make them interesting, whether it's venom sacs or claws or wild senses, or maybe they're a pack. And then you have some on-demand dinosaurs. Don't look at these too closely. I might use some of these in my upcoming game. Big dinosaurs with its own random tables for the kind of actions that it takes when it's chasing you, and a character sheet. They're all the same, really. It's just sort of styled a little bit differently. So I think this one's a good example. Here's the very obvious not Fallout, Furious Wasteland. All right, and that's enough of the action flicks for now, though. Again, I might do a dedicated video in the future. There's actually one more book or booklet that will be published as part of the Outgunned Adventure crowdfunding campaign, and that's the Assistant Director booklet. This will be written by Matt Kay, but it's not available yet. This includes random tables and ideas for creating adventures on the fly, including a solo mode. I think this will be super useful. I think having some random tables and things like that for being able to do more improv style adventures is really complementary to what the books themselves offer. So super excited for whenever this comes out. All right, I realized I actually forgot one additional booklet that's part of the Outgunned Adventure set of books, and that's the Mission Dossier Fall of Atlantis. So essentially this is a mini campaign. The campaign consists of 3 parts: Frozen Legacy, The Way to Atlantis, and Poseidon's Fury. And the first part, Frozen Legacy, is actually also included in the core book itself, as well as in the quick start. So you have that one already, but this is essentially the full mini campaign. And I'll just briefly flip through some of the pages so you have a sense what you're getting. So here's the campaign summary, what it's all about. A breakdown of the 3 shots is what they call them. Each might be a single session or maybe 2 sessions, kind of depends on how much progress you make. We have 4 pre-gens. So we have a daredevil, a captain, a smuggler, and a professor. As always, I love the art here. We have a description of the treasure that they're hunting, which is Poseidon's trident. And then, of course, we have our rival, in this case, the evil Nazi professor. He's got some weak spots and strong spots. And then we have the first shot, Frozen Legacy, broken down into a number of scenes with a bit of a summary. And then for each scene, they're all kind of presented in this format, which is actually pretty straightforward and should be really easy to use at the table. So it's a little bit of a if-else format, right? So if they do this, then it tells you how to deal with that. If they go about it a different way, then it tells you how to deal with that. Throughout, there's some cool puzzles, dangerous rolls, things like that. So this looks pretty straightforward. At the end of the booklet, we have the 4 character sheets for the pre-gens. And then we have some handouts. These are really well done as well, I think. So you can show these to your players. And actually, they provide digital files for all of these as well. So if you're playing online, like I'm going to be doing on Discord, you can just drag them in there or pull them into your VTT or whatever. So this looks really well done. I have to admit that I'm more of a homebrew person, and I think Outgunned actually lends itself really well to homebrew with a good dose of improv, because I'm really curious about which direction the players choose to take. I always worry a little bit with these pre-made campaigns that they assume too linear of a structure, and I don't want to be too railroady. But again, I think it's really well done, and it is really good to have a campaign available. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about how to play Outgunned online. This is a topic I had covered in my previous video, but it's been a year and a couple of new options have popped up, so let's revisit that topic. My preferred way to play RPGs is using theater of the mind, rather than using maps and minis or tokens, regardless whether online or in person. One combo that works well for me online is using Google Sheets for character sheets, coupled with Discord for audio and video, as well as dice rolling using a dice bot. In my last video, I already showed you the Google Sheets character sheet that I made. Let me just briefly show it again here. So as you see, this looks very similar to the paper one, just restructured to make sense in a browser, which, is more vertical than the horizontal landscape format character sheets. Overall, it should look very familiar. And here's what it looks like with a sample character filled in. So you can just, check these boxes, uncheck them, check your grid to track it, and all of that. The 2 things that I added since last time are the mission sheet and the director sheet. So these are also normally available as PDFs, and I wanted to have a digital equivalent. So here is the mission sheet. This represents the entire team of heroes. So you can put in all the names and roles, just so you have everything in one place. They can track who the villain is. Maybe they've discovered their strong spots or weak spots. They can jot them down here. Here we can track the heat that they've accumulated over the course of these sessions, and which parts of their plan B they've used. They can use each one of these once per campaign, basically. They might have a vehicle that they're sharing, some supporting characters for the campaign with their own sort of mini stats, context clues, and other information down here. And then here we have the director sheet. So this is a helpful tool for the GM. Again, some of this is repeated, just like on the paper version, so I can track the heroes, the villain, the rides. But then this is a nice way for me to track chases while they happen, so I can just check these boxes off throughout the chase. I can even plan them a little bit ahead of time and write down the special actions that I'm planning to take. And similar for the enemies, where I can maybe prep a little bit ahead of time, see what kind of template I want to use for these enemies. Should they have basic attack or critical or whatever, and defense. I can write down my feats and special actions that I intend to take and track adrenaline as I accumulate it and use it. And then, also supporting characters down here. So this is the sheet. Now, the last piece that's missing is a dice bot for Discord. If you've seen my last video, you saw that I went over the official Outgunned bot. Unfortunately, it turned out that this bot has several major bugs that effectively render it unusable. So I decided to implement my own Discord bot instead, and I recently published it. You can find the link in the video description, and I'll briefly demo it now. Here you see the GitHub page. I made the source code available in case you want to take a look or tweak it, or even send me a pull request if you have any cool features you'd like to see added. There's some usage information up here, the different commands that are supported. Down here, this is just development related, so for those folks that want to try to run it on their local machine. But all you need to do to use it is click this invite link here. So let's click the invite link. Now I need to switch to my Discord app that launched in the background. All right, so here we see the Director's Cut Dice app wants to access my Discord account. It's asking for the necessary permission and which server to add it to. I have my little test server here, so this is the one where I will choose to add it, and I click continue. And yeah, it wants to be able to send messages and manage messages. So I will authorize these permissions, answer the CAPTCHA. All right, now we open up my Discord. Okay, and here I've created a little test thread so I can show some dice rolls. Ignore the other ones. I have some other test Discord bots on here, but the red one with the snake eye is what we want. Let's actually look at the help command first. So if you can't remember how to use the bot, just use the help command and it'll give you some help output here that lists the different commands that you can type. It also links to the GitHub page, which has more information. The main thing, of course, is the roll command. So let's jump right into that. It asks us how many dice we want to roll. Again, in Outgunned, we roll a number of dice that's usually the sum of an attribute and a skill, and it's anywhere between 2 and 9. So let's roll, say, 6 dice. Here we see, by the way, it's using the Outgunned dice symbols. So these actually look the same as the physical dice that came with the game if you backed it. So we have the roll itself here, and then it actually gets broken down automatically. So we have one basic success because we have two of a kind, this kind of bull symbol here. And then we have 4 dice that are not matched. They show up as NA. So since I have at least one basic success, I'm allowed to reroll if I choose to do that. The way it works mechanically in Outgunned is if I manage to get a better success with my reroll, that's great. If I don't, then I actually lose one of my previous successes. The free reroll is essentially the same thing, except that it carries no risk, but you can only do this if you have a feat or something like that that grants your specific character permission to do a free reroll in certain circumstances. So in this case, let's assume I don't have that, so I will do a regular reroll. So let's just click on that. And indeed, actually, I did get a better success. So in fact, I got 3 basics now instead of just the 1 basic. And since there's nothing else I can do, right, there are no non-matched dice, there are no more buttons to click. So this is it. Let's show off another roll. Let's maybe just roll a very small number of dice, like 4. All right, so in this case, I didn't get any matches, right? So I just have these 4 NAs, which means I'm not allowed to reroll, because in order to do a normal reroll, you need at least 1 success. However, the free reroll still applies. So let's say I do have a feat that allows me, in this particular situation, to do a free reroll. I click on that. And oh, look at that. I actually managed to improve the roll as a result, as indicated by the thumbs up here. So now I have 1 basic, these 2 skulls here, and then I still have 2 dice that are not matched. I now have the option to go all in. Click on this red button. Going all in means that I basically push my luck and either get a better success or I lose all of my existing successes. So let's say that I really need that critical success. So I want to go all in, and I didn't get a critical, but I did get another basic. So now I have, so again, thumbs up. I did manage to improve my successes. I now have 2 basics, so that's better. Let's do one more, and then I'll show another feature. Okay, let's roll maybe 7 dice. Oh, look at that. Really lucky. I got, right off the bat, I got an extreme success and a critical success. No additional dice. All right, I want to show off the different dice sets. So if I use the settings command, it actually gives me a menu here where I can choose which dice set I want to use. I have the official ones in here, so Outgunned, Outgunned Adventure. Household is another game by Two Little Mice. That one uses these sort of playing card themed dice. Let's maybe quickly try out Household. So we set it to Household. The bot remembers the setting on a per channel basis. So any rolls after this in this channel or thread will be using this particular dice set. So now if we roll, let's roll here. Yeah, so now we get these kind of colorful dice. And okay, I got a critical and 3 non-matched ones. Let's do the reroll while we're here. Ooh, look at that. I managed to improve it to an impossible success, 5 of a kind. And I can still go all in, but you know, that would be a really bad idea with this impossible. I can have a very low chance of further improving it, but what the heck? Let's click it. So now, because I went all in, I actually lost my impossible success. So I got nothing, got too greedy. Let's show one more dice set, number, so just basic number dice, and then also have some color options that are a little bit more visible perhaps than these small symbols. So I have color squares and I have color symbols. The squares are actually pretty nice and visible. Let's try this real quick. I'll just roll 9 dice so you see a lot of them in one go, right? So it's basically just like this. Now, if you have somebody in your group that's perhaps colorblind, this might not be the ideal choice. Another option for them might be the color symbols, which are also colorful, but each of them also uses a different shape. So here you see we have a green square, we have a blue diamond, a purple heart, a orange star. We have this black and white kind of button is what they call it. So this is another option you can use that might be a little bit more easily readable perhaps than the default dice. All right, so that's the core dice rolling. There are a few other commands that I can run. In particular, I have a d6 that I can roll. It does just what it says. It rolls a single d6. This is helpful, for example, when you roll on your death roulette. When your character is out of grid and takes more damage, you need to roll a d6 and try to get a bigger number than the number of bullets in your chamber. So that's this one. You can also do a coin flip. This comes into play, for example, when you use a spotlight coin, and then afterwards you roll to see whether you actually lose it or whether you get it back. And because I can never remember whether heads or tails are good, I added that in parentheses as well. So in this case, I rolled tails, which is good, and now I got heads, which is bad. Let's look one more time, but I think that's all the commands that I have right now. Yeah, that's it. I might add some additional dice sets in the future. In fact, some other folks have already expressed interest in maybe helping out and creating some dice sets for the various action flicks. So I think that would be super cool to have dice sets for at least the major genres like sci-fi, fantasy, things like that. So curious to see what folks come up with, or I might do some more in the future as well. But for now, I think this does everything I need to be able to run Outgunned games very efficiently. Now, if you prefer to use VTTs, virtual tabletops, to play online, there are a few options. I won't cover these in detail, but I will briefly mention them here and add links to the description. The first option is Alchemy VTT. Two Little Mice actually worked with the Alchemy team to provide official support for Outgunned in Alchemy. This includes the core book as well as some of the supplements. I actually backed the Alchemy Kickstarter when they first launched, and I own a lot of content on the platform, but I have to admit that it's not really for me. I love the idea of Alchemy, but the user experience and information architecture somehow doesn't resonate with me at all. But I know folks that really like the platform, so I do think it's great that there is official support for one of the major VTTs out there. So let's take a quick peek at it. So here we see the starting page. What they often do with Alchemy, a lot of the Free League systems do this as well, right? They have animations in here instead of just static images. So there's some like sparkles flying around and stuff like that. And I think it's kind of neat, but honestly, it doesn't really do anything for me in terms of gameplay. Let's look at a few more, right? We have this one, Hang in There. So that's kind of cool. Or maybe the Race Against Time. So cool effects, I'll give them that, but not really a feature I need. Let's go back to the cover here. I just want to show briefly the die rolling, which at least works, and it doesn't work in many VTTs, so that is nice. I don't have a character sheet in here, but I can actually just pull up this button and then click on the Outgunned dice. So I will increment this until I have, let's say, 7 dice. Click here. Now we're rolling the 7 dice, and it also breaks down the successes. So I got 2 basics. Doesn't sort them, but you know, it's easy enough to see. I got the 2 stars and I got the 2 bullets. So that means since I got at least the success, I could re-roll the other ones. So let's select the non-matching dice, and then I can click on re-roll here. It re-rolls those. And look at that. Yeah, I got an extreme success and a basic success. And I guess I could, right? The basic is the stars and the extreme is the bullets. So I could still go all in and re-roll this bull die here. So let's just do that. And basically got the same thing I got before, which means that, you know, I would actually have lost all of these successes now. So yeah, anyway, it's a couple of clicks, but actually it works and it looks pretty good. And so this could be a nice option if you already use Alchemy. You can also do coin flips and stuff like that. Now, personally, when I do use a VTT, Foundry VTT tends to be my go-to solution. So there are actually 2 different Foundry systems for Outgunned. Here's one of them. It's just called Outgunned. And it looks like it's actively maintained, right? So it was last modified a couple of weeks ago. It's verified to work in version 12 point something of Foundry, which I think is the latest one. So go check this one out. I'll put the link in the description. And then here's the second one, Outgunned CSB. The CSB stands for Custom System Builder. So this one actually depends on the Custom System Builder module. That's a Foundry module that makes it easy to create support for any game at runtime without having to do any coding or anything like that. And that's what the author of this system used as the foundation. And likewise, it looks like it's actively supported, was just modified a week ago, verified to work in the latest version. On the project page, on the GitHub page here, they actually have a video that goes over how it works. And it looks really nice, but I haven't compared it to the other one. So I would say go take a look at both, see which one you prefer. But I know many people use the Foundry systems and really appreciate folks putting these out there. As for other VTTs, I don't think that Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds have Outgunned support yet. And while you might use something like Owlbear Rodeo to show a map and use tokens to visualize everybody's location, unfortunately the dice roller doesn't support Outgunned's special mechanics. That's one of the challenges with the Director's Cut system. At the bare minimum, any dice roller needs to have pretty specific support for rerolls, in fact, several of them in a row, where you can keep some dice and reroll others. I believe roll supports rerolls, and I know some folks that actually use the roll VTT for Outgunned, I believe. Alright, well, that's enough for today. Let me know in the comments if there's anything else you'd like me to cover for the Outgunned RPG in the future. As I said, I might record a more detailed walkthrough of some of the action flicks at some point, for example. As always, likes and subscribes are appreciated as well. See you next time!